Welcome to the Think Conversation series, where we explore issues shaping South Africa. I'm Lucky Mathebula from the Think Foundation. I'm in conversations with South Africans. I talk to influencers. This is more than just a conversation. It is a thought-provoking engagement for a nation ready for the next 30 to 50-year takeoff. Today we are exploring the subject of public service, how this can be a catalyst for economic growth and development. This is a leadership issue. I'm joined by Professor Ngcaweni, the immediate past principal of the National School of Government. He is now at the University of Johannesburg. Sawubona.
Hey, Sawubona. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And we appreciate for the time that you have given us at the Think Conversation. As I said, we're starting conversations with people like you and many like you. You have been a principal of the National School of Government. Your impact is now on record, and reviews are very good, I must say. How has the journey been so far?
Well, it was a mixed one. I would say by and large positive. And there are many factors that contributed to it. Contrary to many heads of departments or DGs and even ministers and presidents, I inherited an institution that was functional, that was well managed. All I had to do was to re-engineer, reimagine it, and get it to have some impact. Otherwise, I did not, like many other of my counterparts, spend sleepless nights trying to fix supply chain because it was broken. That then gave me advantages that many HODs do not have because they have to fix those fundamentals. Mine was to work on the reimagining of the institution, and I was favored by a second fundamental issue, which was that the political environment favored the mandate of the institution. As you will recall, that for the sixth administration, when I joined the NSG, the national priority number one was building state capacity. So the confluence of these macro and other organizational factors made it relatively easy for me to be able to turn the institution around.
Okay, no, that's great. So at the Think Conversation, we work on a number of axioms. And one of the axioms that I want to dedicate our conversation to is that nations that do not implement their plans, they're actually haunted later because they think and they don't implement. We have had Samdi, Palama as predecessors to the National School of Government. And the naming convention of this, at some point it was a Management Development Institute. It tells you the thinking there was management development. Then later it became Palama, which it also spoke about leadership and management, Now it becomes a National School of Government, which means it's about schooling people on how to govern. Now, this naming convention tells a story of what was thinking. What we do say stood the test of time, from Samdi, Palama, up to a School of Government. What is that common thread that stood a test of time?
Well, few things. Some were internal within the institution, some were external in the political environment. Inside the institution, fortunately, even with all the changes that were taking place, there was no breaking of the institution, which often occurs when there are major changes. By the way, this is one of very few departments, if any, of government that change its name without merging or demerging. Mm-hmm. All others were changing names as they were merging or demerging. The only other was GCIS. When it was part of the Department of Communications, it still remained as GCIS, but within a Ministry of Comms of the President. In this instance, names changed without anything substantive changing. Of course, there was a decision to make it a higher education institution through PAMA, and those were not implemented. When I joined the National School of Government, I was asked whether I was going to change the name. And I said, no, I won't change the name. it's actually less important. The fact that we are called a national school of government, in other countries, institutions like ours were called national schools of administration. They may have several names, but that's a common parlance. I thought, let's keep it, let's work on it, let's not distract public attention. And we can be able to make the name synonymous with something very special. And it caught some kind of attention. So at least internally, we're able to keep the ship steady as a result of doing that. But externally, of course, we had this growing momentum on the need to build state capacity and to professionalize the civil service. And for the first time, in addition to what is legally mandated to the Public Service Commission and so on, an institution was given that responsibility to provide the leadership. That then added momentum to what the institution was doing, because over and above what is legislated, it was doing for many years, it now became on a national agenda. It occupied space on the national agenda, which then gave it momentum for it to achieve what it had to do. Most importantly, we had to do a very strategic epistemic shift, if I could call it that way. Historically, even with all these iterations, these changes in names, it was largely an administration training institution like HR, finance, and at some point at least ethics. So we're to make a strategic shift that says, when we talk state capacity, we're talking beyond whether or not you manage people according to the HR laws of the land. We have to look at how we make a contribution towards strengthening economic governance. We're to have a conversation around leadership. We're to reimagine how we even provide training for politicians. And of course, we're to open up the school so it can provide a service to both elected as well as appointed officials in South Africa and beyond the borders of South Africa. And again, as I said, because the sixth administration had determined that building state capacity is a number one priority, that became a wave that we were able to ride over the period.
But let me go exactly on that, because clearly in your time, professionalization and building a capable state, I want to distinguish between capacity and capability. So there was a professionalization of the public service, but there was also in the National Development Plan almost a call for a capable state. Now, what does each of these concepts mean? You know, when you professionalize, does it mean having a lot of public servants with master's degrees and PhDs? What does it mean to professional? Does it mean giving people qualification? But also, what does it mean when we say a capable state? What's capability? What's professionalism? Is it the same thing? Is it two streams? What does it mean? Just for us to understand, so that we can look at whether there is movement or what. You have been there.
Well, firstly, let me start at the bigger strategic issue. The fact that we were given that responsibility of driving, the agenda of building a capable and developmental state. And it's expressly written in the vision and mission of the National School of Government. The only department whose vision and mission coincide with the national priority of government in a manner in which it is articulated. The only others will be the parliament, because parliament, the constitution is clear as to what parliament must do in terms of lawmaking, public participation and oversight. So we were favored by that. That mattered because, for example, myself, I knew that the stakes were high. So there was no room for failure. I had to mobilize people and resources and also third-party endorsers to make sure that we're able to drive this thing and keep the momentum on what had been stated as being a national priority. Then the two distinct elements of those, one was a policy work, which is the professionalization one, which we were asked to lead. So we provided the leadership working with other departments, and there's a point at which we realized that we cannot succeed in doing this and writing it as public servants only. We had to call on people from outside. That is why we brought in, academics who are unique because these are, academics, but also have a public service practice as it is. So it became relatively easy, therefore, when we bring those expertise to navigate the process of finalizing the document so that it is responsive, it is relevant, and it must have a popular appeal. Of course, in writing the framework, there were lots of compromises that we had to do. For example, there were a toyed idea of whether we should make expressly training compulsory for politicians. It's captured in the document, it is encouraged, it is supported, but we couldn't then stretch it and say that it make it compulsory, because then we are overreaching and so on. Under the circumstances, you could end up losing what you could have gained if we were enforcing some of those things. And I'm mentioning this because it links to this concept of capability development and so on. Unfortunately, and I warned the colleagues as I was leaving the National School of Government last month, that there is a tendency, and it's not unique to NSG, National Youth Development Agency suffers the same, and several others, where an institution becomes a panacea for mega problems that are facing state and society. So in many cases, when there is a failure somewhere, people say, where is the National School of Government? And if the National School of Government were to intervene, what will it do? The primary mandate is to provide training and development, right? So we're building the ability of people to do certain things. Then we realize that, okay, those people may or may not have qualifications, and then we can help them so that they can, also qualify if that is the instance. But there's something much bigger.
If you would hold it there, because I think I need to take a bit of an ad break. I will come with a follow-up question on that. We will be back with more on the thing conversations.